Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I want to talk a little bit about course design and more specifically unit design. And there are two reasons why I'm recording this video. One of them is that I am really interested in course design. What I love about it is that course design is actually a combination of creative, because you create something new from scratch. It makes you think outside the box. But at the same time, it has, these logical and analytical elements, because when you are creating something new, you also need to make sure that it fits into the overall picture. And that not only do you teach a good lesson or a good unit, but it has a link to what you have taught before and what you will teach in the future. So this is a very complex but really fascinating process that I am a big fan of. Another thing which is cool about this video is that you can see that the unit that I will end up with is not set in stone. So I am now in the process of teaching this unit, which means that you will see me struggle with the same questions that any other teacher struggles while creating a course for ESP students, one-to-one students, or, well, pair students, group students, actually, well, any course. So yeah, you will see me struggle with the challenges, the problems, and you can see what my thinking process behind of that is, and yeah, how I basically just go about it. So let's begin. A little bit of background information. So the unit that I'm designing is for a pair of my second year CEE students. And the reason I'm saying that is that I'm not going to, you will notice that I'm not going to talk in detail about exam strategies, how to go about the tasks, because my students are already familiar with all of them. They've been preparing for CEE for more than a year, and they are professionals already. What we're doing with this course right now is actually consolidating the knowledge that they already have, and also, improving our performance, and also building confidence that we will need in the exam setting. The coursework that I'm using with them is ready for advanced, and overall I'm quite happy with the syllabus that they offer. I think it's a really good one. But when I looked at the unit number 3, which is called gathering information, and you can see it here on the left, I was not really happy about it. Not only have we covered some of these topics earlier, and we talked at length about many of them, but also, the activities that they want us to do, the language that they want us to practice is not something that I think is, really interesting. Well, anyway, gathering information is a very important topic for an exam. So I decided to run a little experiment with my students. I asked them to brainstorm a perfect unit instead. And usually our units last around like 7 to 8 lessons, 9 lessons. So it really varies, it depends. So I want to create a perfect unit based on students' suggestions. And I want to combine two things. I want to make it student-centered, so that students feel that they take ownership of the process, that they can, suggest something and we can actually implement it in class. But also, of course, since this is an exam preparation course, I want us to still practice exam tasks. And yeah, this is what we need. So sounds like a plan. Let's move on. So when I sit and think about what I want to include in my unit, I have to think about some principles of course design. And even though I'm designing a unit and not really a course, I will still be referring to it as a course, because, it has beginning, it has an end, it has an outcome. So you will hear me say course design while in fact I'm referring to the unit. And before I show you the principles that guide me through the process, I want us to agree on this. I really love this scheme from teachers as course developers. And the idea behind it is that the design of the unit that I end up with is not set in stone, because course design is an ongoing process. My aims and my goals may change along the way. We may linger on some topic for a bit too long if I feel like students need it, or maybe I identify another area for improvement and I will need to tweak and adjust the course so that it fits now the students needs. So yeah, stage number one, we start with planning the course, we then teach, we replan, modify, tweak, make these little changes, reteach, and like this is an ongoing process, right? So it doesn't mean that's like I decide right here, right now, and it's going to stay this way forever. So, and the first thing you need to bear in mind when you start to design a course, a unit, whatever it is needs analysis. And yeah, this is what I ask my students to do. This is my way of conducting needs analysis, is asking students what topics pique their interest. And you can see that when I ask students to brainstorm a perfect unit, they didn't put here some linguistic difficulties that they are presented with, not like the language that they struggle with, the grammar that they struggle with, the exam prep tasks that they struggle with, but actually the topics. So you will see that actually my syllabus is going to be a bit like content-based, because I'm taking content and topics as basis, and I'm building some linguistic, mastery on the basis of these topics. So this is part of the needs analysis. And also I took the liberty of selecting exam related tasks for my students. Why did I select those? Well, first of all, I've been teaching this group for more than a year, so I already know my students pretty well, and I know the things that present most difficulties for them. And I know that it's everyone's favorite. It's reading part 7, it's use of English part 2 and part 4. And let me just quickly go back to have a look at the overview that the course book suggests. We will see here that actually, course books, they want us to practice many different things within the unit. What I'm trying to do with this one is I want to narrow it down. So this time, since I'm the boss with this unit and I decide what I want to do, I want us really to double down on reading and use of English. This will be my focus of this unit. And you can see that gap text, open clauses, and keyword transformation, they are all present here. So I may still make the most out of the coursebook without ditching it entirely. I can use some of the tasks from the book, maybe to set as extra activities or homework assignment, or maybe even use them in classroom, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So, topics, exam-related tasks, and we can see that we have 2 different types of needs. We have subjective needs, something that students feel they want to know, and objective needs, something they have to know in order to, sit the exam successfully. And yeah, this is exam preparation course. This is the main goal of this course, so to say. So it is an inseparable part of our unit just as well. Okay, after we're done with needs analysis, we then move on to goals. And I think goals is like the hardest part of designing a course, a unit. Once you are done with goals, you are good to go, really. Goals is, I think, the most challenging part. And yeah, they can really vary. You can see that I have outlined 2 goals for this unit. Goal number 1 is of a linguistic nature. I want students to improve their fluency when talking about selecting, memorizing, and monetizing information. These are the topics of their interest, and they want to talk on these topics fluently and using a range of linguistic devices. And our goal, oh, by the way, where did I take it all from? Why selecting, memorizing, and monetizing? I didn't just wake up, deciding that it's going to be this way. I actually took it from the questions that they suggested. So I took the liberty of putting and trying to identify some topics, right, that we can specify, single out, and put these questions under these topics. We can see that there is a question about memorizing new information. So this can be the topic of one of the units, one of the lessons. We see that there is another track of like using information in order to, make money out of it. So we can talk about business and how we use information in order to monetize it. And also there are 3 topics which are like about gathering, selecting, sifting through the information. So again, I also united it under the general name, like selecting information. All right. And goal number 2 is exam-related goal. Upon completion of the unit, students will have achieved more confidence in themselves as learners when completing the following exam tasks. Once again, they already know everything. What they need right now is more practice. So what I want them to do is really to become more confidence. And of course, I want to have improved performance by the end of the course. So we'll see if we manage to achieve that as well. So you can see that I have different types of goals. So we have some cognitive goals, the knowledge that I want students to acquire by the end of the unit. We have some affective goals, and affective goals are related to like changed perception of something. Like I want my students to change attitude to the exam. I want them to become more confident. This is an example of an affective goal. And proficiency goals, because I want them to become more fluent. I want to expand their range of vocabulary and the way they can express themselves while talking about these topics. So fluency could be a proficiency goals, which is related to language mastery. Okay. Whew, now that we are done with goals, let's move on to objectives. And actually, so the goal is a big thing, right? Like the big boss in the computer games, in the computer game. This is like where you are headed. This is what you are striving for. And then you take little baby steps in order to achieve that goal. Those like teachable chunks. And these teachable chunks will be the lesson objective of every lesson that I teach within this unit. So if I say that my unit will be of about like 8 lessons, I will have 8 lesson objective, but I can have not just one lesson objective within the lesson. So objective is actually what do the students need to do and learn in order to achieve the big boss that I was referring to a bit earlier. And I really like the way it's put in syllabus design. Objectives are really nothing more than a particular way of formulating or stating content and activities. Thus, how one conceptualizes and states objectives depends on how one conceptualizes the content of the course. So really, lesson objectives is what's inside. Yeah, it's how you go about the activities and content, how you use it in order to achieve the big goal. I will talk about lesson objective a little bit later. Now, I need to think about the materials. How will I teach the unit? What materials will I use? And since we are preparing a perfect unit, I cannot rely solely on the course book because these are not the topics that I can find in the course book. So, of course, I will be resorting to some authentic materials. I still want to make the most out of the course book as much as I can, because, you know, course books were written by very smart people, and I don't want to do away with them completely. I want them. And I will be using a worksheet that I will also mention a tiny bit later. All right. Now, organization. How will I organize the syllabus? What is the sequence of my lessons? How will I structure the unit in general? So again, I think that there are 2 principles that, inform my teaching choices. One of them is scaffolding. So this is what I typically try to do when I teach students. Before asking them to complete the big task, we take some little steps, some steps that help students to complete the final task, the big boss. A random example. Before I ask students to write an essay, I do not just tell them, write an essay, right? First of all, we study topic sentences and concluding sentences. Then we try to write 1 paragraph, then 2 paragraphs, and then only then we write an essay. So this is like from something small and more concrete to, bigger and vast. And what's the point of teaching everything which is new if we do not go back to the things that we have covered in the past? So another principle that is really important for me is recycling. So I always ask myself these 2 questions. How can I marry the old with the new? How can I fit something that we studied before here in this unit? Can I do that? And also, how can I ensure recycling within the unit? And actually, I think it will not be like really recycling. It will be like revision. So here are two things that I do. I go and consult two documents that I have for any course I teach, be it individual students, pair students, group students, whatever. I have these documents for all of them. And number one is emergent language document. This is something that I exploit in order to create revision activities. And every lesson that I teach starts with the revision activity, usually a communicative one. So I may go through all the list, not necessarily the things we studied in the previous class, but through everything that we have covered so far, and see if I can use some language that we used in a different context in order to talk about information. So you can see point number 2, old language, new context. Number 3 is adapting material. So let's say I'm using an authentic article and I see that there is a phrase which can be expressed by like a lexical item that we studied a little bit earlier. Let me give you again a random example. The first thing that comes to my mind. Just because we talked about change with my students earlier, and we, talked about ways how we can express the future, and we learned the phrase it is within the realms of possibility. So let's say I come across the original article which says it is likely that something will happen in the future. I know that I can, change it a little bit, and instead of it's likely, I can write it is within the realms of possibility that something will happen in the future. So what I'm trying to do here is develop noticing, so the students notice the language we studied in the new context. Yeah, that's about it. And the second language, the second document that I have is syllabus, and I know that you can find all of that in the teacher's book more often than not, but still, I prefer to take digital notes, and because this is something that gives me a sense of direction, and also it makes my life easier, and it makes me to prepare for the lessons faster. Because again, when I think about some revision activities, not only do I think about the language, but the vocabulary, but I also think about, let's say, like grammar and functions that we studied in the past. So I know that in the first unit, we had speaking part number 2, and naturally we talked about comparing and contrasting. So I may use the phrases for comparing and contrasting, maybe in the unit to talk about information and compare something within the unit. Yeah, so I have this like list of things that we have studied. And again, I see how I can build these connections, how I can build those bridges so everything is intertwined. This is my favorite part, actually. I love this. Okay. Now, evaluation. So why do we need goals if we don't know if we manage to achieve them or not? So how will I know that the unit has been successful and effective? I need to make sure that I can somehow measure the goals. Remember, like SMART goals, they have to be measurable. So improving fluency, this is such a vague, let's say, goal, right? How do you know that you have improved fluency? What is that? So we need to come up with some kind of evaluation system. Okay, so here's my thinking. I can ask my students to repeat the task. So let's say I ask them to do something at the beginning, and I ask them to do the same task at the end, and see if their performance has improved based on the knowledge that we have acquired. And yeah, preferably we want to see this improvement. Or we can create a criteria together with students. Let's say a checklist, like I can speak on the topic with very little hesitations. I can use the range of vocabulary, blah, blah, blah. So we can create this list and then assess ourselves. And this will be a form of, I would say, like objective evaluation. But there can also be a subjective one. I can also ask my students to reflect on their previous journey and just, give them some kind of system so that they can rank themselves and devise an action plan for the future. Why not? Goal number 2 was related to exam prep. And as I mentioned earlier, ideally, we want to see improved performance, but also evaluation can happen in the form of reflection, because our goal, again, it has more of an abstract. Is it abstract, like confidence? I guess it is, right? It's your attitude to something. It's hard to measure. So yeah, I can ask students just to reflect if they have become more confident now. Okay. And the last thing that we need to bear in mind when we think about the unit design is our constraints. So basically the problems and challenges that we might face, and something that we can do in order to prevent this. And definitely the first thing that springs to my mind, and I think it would spring to the mind of any teacher when you are diverging from the coursebook, is material selection. Where on earth am I going to find this perfect article and this perfect video or perfect material in general? And it takes ages, right? It may take you, like 1,000 years to search for something that is just impeccable. So I understand that this is going to be a problem for me as well, and I don't want to spend hours looking for the material. So here's what I think I may do to alleviate this problem. I can make it as student-centered as possible, the unit I mean, and invite students to suggest or find the materials themselves. I can still make the most out of the coursework. I mentioned this earlier. I don't want to ditch it. I want to use it. Coursebooks are great. And I will try and apply dogme in one lesson. So since this is, a unit of experiments, let's, just, do everything that we can in order to experiment with everything that we can. So I'm going to experiment with dogme a little bit. Okay. Shall we move on to lessons overview? So now I'm going to give you a rough plan of how I see the sequence of the lessons. And again, this may change. This is not set in stone. This is an ongoing process, and things may, go, differently. And to be honest, I have already taught the first lesson. And in the first lesson, we focused on fake news. So the lesson objective of this unit was to equip my students with the vocabulary that they can use to talk about spotting fake news. And we had 9 targeted phrases that I wanted them to acquire and to use in order to talk about fake news, how we can spot them. There is another lesson objective for this unit is, well, the cognitive goal. Since my students are interested in, and there is another cognitive goal of this unit. So since my students are interested in the topics, of course, I want them to be able to name at least 5 ways to spot fake news, so that, our lessons are beneficial, not only in terms of language, but also in terms of the, knowledge that they get about the world. All right. And since we're going to watch a video, we watched a video. Of course, there was an element of developing listening skills, something that helps us to achieve the bigger goal. Okay. How does it fit into the overall picture? I am improving students' fluency by expanding their vocabulary on the topic of selecting. So you can see vocabulary like fluency, we have discussions about all of that. It's topic specific, and selecting like spotting fake news. And if you think about spotting fake news, it is in a way selecting information, because you select what's reliable and what's trustworthy or not. You distinguish between the things you can trust and the things which lean towards one point of view. So it is in a way selecting. All right. And this is something that I've been meaning to mention. So I used a worksheet for this unit, for this lesson, which was created by the one and only Yulia Kumichova. Yulia has this worksheet on her website. It is free. So you can use it. Here is the link to Yulia's website. Okay. Lesson number 2. For lesson number 2, I want my students to get practice of identifying the text structure and the elements of cohesion. And remember, I was talking about these bridges, building connections. So actually, lesson number 2 is a little bridge, is a little, the scaffolding, my help before lesson number 3, which will be aimed at exam task, where analyzing text structure and identifying the elements of cohesion is actually the key to success. So this is the aim of our lesson now. And lesson objective number 2, we will be doing that on the basis of the text. So this is going to be a reading lesson on the basis of the text about how to search for information online efficiently. So basically about advanced search. How does it fit, once again, into the overall picture? I want students to improve fluency, because I want students to assess ways of how they're going to search for information online. So maybe I will provide them with some like sentence frames in order to help them to express their idea of like assessments, evaluating things. So there will be some like lexical chunks that I'm going to provide students with. And again, the topic, selecting information, searching information, which is also stays within the, you know, the frame. And there is another goal, not like another goal, but it also fits into the overall picture, because as I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit of like a preparation task before the big boss. Okay. So I also see some opportunities for recycling here. Remember, I mentioned we talked about comparing and contrasting. So since we're talking about ways to search for information efficiently, probably there will be a list and enumeration of different things that you can do, like tips, do this, this, and that. You know, it is also about assessing ways, right? It's comparing and contrasting. So I really surround my students with this language as much as I can, like something new. And also I try to marry the old with the new. That was lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, ta-da, the big boss, reading part number 7. So that's why we were analyzing the text structure and the elements of cohesion in our lesson 2, so that we can become better and more confident while we are completing part number 7 at the next lesson. And you can see here that my objective here is to have timed practice. So we are actually going to probably start the lesson with some revision and then sit and write this task. What I think it will achieve is confidence. If students understand that they can complete the task within the time constraints of the lesson, I hope that they will become more confident and they will understand that they can also do it under time pressure in the exam setting. So this is my aim here. Then we can reflect on how successful they were, what helped them, what was difficult, like talking about some strategies, action plans, like a little discussion session after we finish the task. Lesson number 4, I think it will be a listening skills lesson, not like a listening skills lesson, but we will use some input from the video, just because we read some articles in the past to vary the dynamics and to vary the activities within the unit. I will try to find a video on this topic. Here's what I want us to do. I want students to revise conditional sentences to talk about the application of memorization techniques. Where on earth did I get this all from? Why conditional sentences? Again, I look at what the coursebook suggests, and the coursebook suggests revising hypothetical past situations, present and future conditionals, so I can still make the most out of the coursebook, but in the context of memory. So I can ask students to talk about how they applied memorization techniques in the past. Let's say, oh, had I known how to study and memorize new words more efficiently, I would have, had only, excellent marks in my university. Or if I do this, this, and that, I will be better at retaining the information that I gain. So we can play with that at the, like a discussion stage and do some controlled practice activities. And of course, I want students to become familiar with the concept of memory, because students were initially interested in that. Their interest was of like cognitive nature. They wanted to gain knowledge on this topic. So I want to provide them with this knowledge as well. This will improve fluency because, yeah, this is like a linguistic goal, and we will talk about memorization. So I once again make sure that it all fits in the big picture. And what I'm showing you here right now is actually like the logic that I have here. Again, it's not set in stone, but you can see what I think about when I think of a lesson objective. Like, how do I connect the objective with the goal? How does it help me? How does it make me closer to the goal that I want to achieve? Lesson number 5. you can see that there is a little picture close to lesson number 5, which shows script, which means I'm going to utilize the video that we're going to watch in lesson number 4 as much as I can. And I want to work around the script from this video. Why? So it solves the problem of material selection. I'm not going to, I will not have to search for something extra. I can make the most out of what I have. It will also ensure revision and recycling because students will notice some things that they have already seen before, and it will help them to revise and notice them once again. And I will exploit this text for my exam prep purposes. I want students to create and complete their own keyword transformation tasks. So as I said, they are already professionals and we are past the stage where we can just, take the coursebook, take the task and complete it. They are, very confident advanced users already. And I think they can already create their own keyword transformation task. But in order to do that, we need to understand how keyword transformation tasks work. And what Use of English part number 4 tests is your ability to express an idea in different ways using lexical and grammatical knowledge. So I want my students to get practice of expressing the ideas from the text in different ways. So maybe I can use the script to identify some really nice bits of language that we can express in different ways, practice that, and then create our own task. This will improve fluency of students inevitably because they will be expressing the same ideas using the different language. And also it takes us closer to improving confidence while we are completing part number 4, because it's one thing just to complete the task. Another thing is to create the task on your own. So this is like next level. So I hope we can pull it off. Okay, lesson number 6 is the dogma lesson that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and you can see this, brain saying brainstorm. So a lesson objective for this unit is I want students to create, so like a little bit of task here, a guide on what information a self-employed teacher should share on their social media profile in order to attract more clients. So this actually falls into the category of monetizing information, how we use this information to make money out of it. Why dogma? I'm not sure if I will be able to find the perfect material, and I can look for it for hours on end, and probably I will not come up with the right one. But I know that my students are teacher learners, and I think that this topic is really relevant to their life and it's of paramount importance for them. So I think they will not be stumped for ideas. I think we can easily brainstorm something, work around emergent language document, maybe use some input to compare our ideas with something else, not necessarily about the teachers. We'll see. I'm just, thinking about it as we go. So yeah, sub-aim, since they're going to create a guide, they will be talking to one another. So I want to practice the functional language of agreeing, disagreeing, and expressing opinion, which is actually also quite important for the speaking part of the exam, although speaking is not on the list of our goals. But anyway, how does it fit into the overall picture? It improves fluency, right? Here, like conversational fluency mostly. And we're talking about monetizing information. All right. Any opportunities for recycling? Well, I mentioned that. Have I mentioned that? We talked about expressing possibility with the students, and we learned some chunks as like here stands no chance of. There is every likelihood, blah, blah, blah. We cannot exclude the possibility, blah, blah, blah. So maybe we can look at some profiles, making sure we don't have the names and it's all ethical and anonymous, and look at them, assess them, and agree or disagree on the fact, on how likely these teacher profiles are likely to succeed in the future, and how likely they are to attract a lot of clients or customers. So we can, make up such sentences as like, she stands every chance of becoming the next ELT community star online, something like that. Okay, good. Lesson number 7 will be exam prep focus. So you see, I'm really trying to balance general English with exam prep here. I want students to have had, again, timed practice with use of English part number 2. Timed practice because I feel like at this stage they can pull it off at the lesson, and this will improve their confidence, and then we can discuss after they are done what's helped them, what not, what we can improve next time. And before we practice part number 2, I want students to help students remember what part 2 is all about. So we will get practice of noticing contextual clues that help us understand lexical, grammatical collocations, because closed test is what it's all about. It's about some like little grammar words, like the grammatical glue, usually little words that help to organize the text together. So you will see that they gap such like words as like prepositions, WH words, articles, some linkers, conjunctions, little words. How does it? Oh, by the way, as I was preparing for our video, I came across this website. So you can actually create a closed test out of any text, any written text online. So you just paste your text here, and then you choose which words to gap, and then you can discuss the contextual clues and ask students what helped them guess and all that jazz. How does it fit into the overall picture? Again, we can, by the way, as I'm thinking about it, we can take the text that we had in the reading lesson some time ago and again use it for these purposes. So students will have a look at it once again. Yeah, revise, recycle, notice some stuff, but we're using it for different purposes. So yeah, it gets them closer to achieving confidence because we create our own task and we become better at use of English part number 2. And the final lesson that we have in this unit, the way I see it right now, is actually a revision and consolidation of everything we have covered in the span of 7 lessons. So I think I will create some revision activities. At the end of the lesson, we will have some reflection to kind of summarize everything we have studied. It improves fluency once again. So here I may ask students to repeat the task, to do 4-3-2 activity, talk about something for 4 minutes, then 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes. And yeah, that's about it. And a few closing words here just before we go. Once again, course design is an ongoing process, which means I'm not going to end up with the way I plan it right here and right now. It may change and turn in some other direction. I don't know which one yet, but I hope it won't, because I spent some time preparing it and I want it to, go smoothly. There will be revision at the beginning of every lesson to make sure that we didn't just talk about memory and then moved on to talk about something else. We actually revised this vocabulary in maybe a little discussion. Yeah, like creating questions or creating some statements that we can discuss later on. The communicative achievements and follow-up discussions are the core of every lesson, and this is where we are going again to develop our fluency at this stages of the lesson. There will be focus on emergent language. You can see that I'm not really like spoon feeding some target vocabulary here. I think I will rely mostly on emergent language, which in turn also what makes this course student-centered. I will be using what the students want to express the language, the ideas that they want to express, and help them with the language. Maybe suggest some alternative, maybe change something, or maybe if students, share some really good examples of language which is topic specific and we can, exploit it within the unit. Why not? We can use it just as well. And there will be collaborative activities like peer checking, peer reviewing, especially when it comes to exam prep tasks. Maybe I can ask students to review each other's works, suggest some changes and do something of this sort. Okay, so this is everything I wanted to say on course design. Thank you very much for your attention. Let me know what you think about it. Maybe I overlooked something and you can help me, tweak and improve this unit design. I will gladly listen to any suggestions that you have for me. So thank you very much.